Pro Wrestling Weekly. For over 20 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment radio talk.
Is cooking.
WBCB presents Pro Wrestling Weekly,
the longest-running pro wrestling radio talk show in the history of terrestrial radio.
And he's obviously Michael Cole.
Call in with a question or comment at 215-949-3232 or 888-922-2149.
You really do sound like a
grizzled old vet. Is that where you were going with there?
Yes.
To not get you in trouble?
Oh, I'll get in trouble at some point. Believe me, I'll do something.
Well, to keep you out of trouble in this case, at least.
And now here are your hosts of Pro Wrestling Weekly, Fearon Derry and Lucas DeSangro.
Ooh, I'm getting good at this radio thing.
Yeah. It only took you 5.5 years.
I'm not good at it yet. I'm starting.
Yeah.
Only slightly.
Slowest escalator upward.
Shut up!
There's the sound of the bell, and we are set to go. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you, flying solo, as Twitch had texted me heading into today here a little bit ago, noting that he had some occupational obligations. He's one of those junk remover type people, and today seemed like a good day for a lot of people to hire him to move junk out. So he is taking care of that. And no, he is not taking himself out as part of it, because I knew that was going to be the question asked by a few people. I wouldn't have necessarily gone there, but who am I kidding? I probably would have. Anyway, something that was that a lot of people wish was thrown out, or I should say wish wasn't thrown out, was the main event to this past Sunday's Hell in a Cell that has caught a lot of negative flack, to say the least here. And we'll go over the pay-per-view in full, but a lot of people talking about the main event, as that was one of the few matches that was advertised prior to the event. That's why we only had 4 predictions certain to go wrong last week, because that was all that was announced as of the time we aired. And then they surprised threw 4 additional matches onto the card pretty much not too long before it. But the main event, Seth Rollins defending the Universal Championship against The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. That's what the wrestling world's been talking about. Talking being a very nice way of putting it. It was a finish that was perplexing. It was maddening. Dare I say it was frustrating.
Frustrated isn't the word for it! This is bullshit! So much injustice around here, I've had it up to here!
Well, Brett's sentiments pretty much basically shared by the viewing audience as, the end of the match, for those who didn't see it, Rollins, in an attempt to keep Wyatt down inside the cell, which, slight tangent here, had to have been an interesting viewing experience. I know it was for those at home. I can't imagine what those in the Sacramento crowd were going through as they decided for the match, because it was The Fiend, trying to keep with the supernatural thing, almost akin to The Undertaker that they have going on with him. They decided to have the entire match wrestled with the lights basically out, except for a litany of red lights that were shown on the ring and cell. And the cell cage, of course, a little different this time in that instead of it being the usual black that you see, they decided to go with a red cell, which, yeah, that's right. The entire chain fence that surrounded the ring, as well as the top, it was all red. So that there were a lot of internet memes after the fact comparing it to the encasing of the play place that you would see at McDonald's, for example. So that gave kind of an interesting take to it, and I see what they were going for, but visually, I don't know how it was in the arena, but the comparisons that I got, and this is it's an obscure reference, but I'm going to try to bring everybody up on it. It almost looked like the old Nintendo Virtual Boy from back in the mid-'90s. It was a very short-lived system that maybe sold about a couple 100,000 units to it, but it was basically virtual reality or VR before VR things were made. And the technology was so simplistic at the time, just due to limitations, that everything that you saw in terms of, it was monochromatic, I believe is the term, meaning that all you could see as the characters and everything was just red and black, and no other colors were able to be seen on that virtual reality system for the, I don't know, a couple dozen games that were made for it. And that's kind of what it looked like in this case. You just had everything being red and black, and it just it looked a little bit strange. But the ending to the match here, so in an attempt to keep Bray Wyatt down, because the Fiend, he was made to look unstoppable, and he certainly was, Rollins in the ending sequence hit not one, not two, but 3 curb stomps, then hit a pedigree, Triple H's pedigree, then yet another curb stomp, to which Bray Wyatt kicked out at 1 after a pinfall attempt. Then Rollins hit a super kick, 5 more curb stomps, a chair shot to the head, to the prone head of Wyatt, who was laying down at that point, to which Wyatt kicked out at 1 again. As if that wasn't enough, he then laid the chair on Wyatt's face and then proceeded to hit the chair with a ladder that was at ringside. Wyatt kicked out at 2 of that. You see how this is getting almost comical, just in description here? 5 strikes with a toolbox that was under the ring to that same ladder that was sandwiching said chair onto the prone head of Wyatt. And then he laid the toolbox onto the ladder as well as the chair. And this is where things apparently went too far. Yep, Rollins went and grabbed Triple H's good old weapon of choice, the sledgehammer. The referee tried to talk Rollins out of using it because apparently that, out of all the things, that was the breaking point, supposedly. But yeah, despite the referee's efforts, this isn't you. This is very much trying to make that whole moral judgment thing. Rollins eventually swung the sledgehammer, hitting the toolbox on top of the ladder, on top of the chair, on top of Bray Wyatt's face, and that was enough for the referee to call for the bell. During the WWE watch-along, which is the thing that they have, Sean Waltman, you remember him as X-Pac, he was part of that panel, and he had this to say.
You may not ask me back for another one of these, but how the hell do you get DQ now?
Did he get DQ'd or they have to stop the match? I don't know if he got DQ'd.
I mean, they're raising the cell now, so...
The referee may just called it.
And that was the debate for the better part of a day, was... what exactly was the finish? Because it was very unclear. Was it a disqualification? Was it a no contest? Was it... they eventually... I'll get into what they had eventually settled on as I'm getting ahead of myself. But to say the least, the fans in the arena were livid, initially chanting things like BS and, you know exactly what that stands for, the full version of it, as well as chants of AEW. That's right, the competition. That little bleep ant company that they were talking about a few months ago. So, as the referees were trying to place Wyatt onto a gurney, Rollins stood over him, and Rollins ended up receiving a mandible claw, and Wyatt continued offense on Rollins. So this led to fans chanting, "Restart match," and then when that didn't happen, there were more AEW chants. So, after a day or two of deliberation, backpedaling, whatever you want to call it, the undetermined finish went from a disqualification to a no contest to finally settling on a referee stoppage. Now, this one, I think a lot of people are giving Rollins the blame for this. Maybe not a lot of people, but there are some people who are. And there were a lot of people who I think they genuinely wanted Bray Wyatt to win. He's the cool, new, trendy thing. Rollins hasn't exactly been very endearing as a fan favorite, and I think this was kind of where the fans started to turn on Seth Rollins. At one point, Rollins even getting rather displeased with a fan near the front row who had displayed a sign that simply said, "Seth Rollins is not cool." And that, I think, is a lot of where the frustration lies, is that Seth Rollins he's attempting to be popular with the people, but he is just coming across as not cool. And just looking at him by nature and looking at the history of his career, he seems to be better served as being a jerk, being a bad guy. So, I mean, we'll see where things go from here, but a lot of this also, and I think a lot of where the booing, and that's why the AEW chants were coming in, was to peel back the curtain a little bit, break the fourth wall, whatever you want to call it, looking too creative. Now, Rollins, I guess Wyatt, not necessarily his time to win the title, if he's going to at all. So Rollins had to retain the Universal Championship, but if he pins Bray Wyatt or makes him submit, that diminishes Wyatt's, kind of white-hot run that's going on here. So Rollins can't lose, and Wyatt can't lose. So you have a situation where both wrestlers needed to win. Why do you put them into a match where, until last year, and we'll get into that in a moment, where there had to be a decisive winner? Now, what I mean by until last year, this was the 42nd ever Hell in a Cell match since it debuted 22 years and a week ago. Came up in Today in Wrestling history last week, In Your House, Bad Blood 97. Now, last year with Roman Reigns facing Braun Strowman in a Hell in a Cell match, that match ended in a no contest when Brock Lesnar interfered, kicked in the cell door, and laid out both wrestlers with F5s. So this is now the second year in a row where you have this match with this supposedly impenetrable structure that you had a wrestler kick in the door, which kind of it diminished the purpose of that, and now you have a referee decision stoppage on a match where there has to be a definitive winner. Pinfall, submission, that's it. That's pretty much all I got on that, is just an exasperated sigh. I don't know where else to go with it. Now, the rest of the pay-per-view was fairly enjoyable. I mean, especially the first couple of matches, which were two of the ones that were actually announced. You had Becky Lynch defeating Sasha Banks by submission in the first Hell in a Cell match of the night to retain the Raw Women's Championship. And you had Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. As much as everybody figured, this is going to be the point where Daniel Bryan turns on Reigns and comes back with Rowan and Harper. No, it looks like, unless there's some swerve that we don't see coming, that full-on fan favorite changeover for Daniel Bryan, as not only did they defeat Eric Rowan and Luke Harper in this, it turns out it was a tornado tag team match. That was a little addition at the end. But in addition, Bryan afterward, not just looking for a handshake, looking for a hug, akin to back in the days of Team Hell No, of Bryan and Kane, and ended up getting that, and that pretty much cemented the good guy turn for Daniel Bryan. Then there were the matches that we didn't hear about. Randy Orton beating Ali. Okay, a little over 12 minutes, not too shabby. We have new women's tag team champions. Yeah, that's right, the women's tag team championship's still around. The Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, defeating Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross to win those women's tag titles. Then you had a six-man tag after that, the aforementioned Braun Strowman teaming up with the Viking Raiders, Experience and all the other things that they were named previously, against the OC, Original Club, AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson, but that was by disqualification in a little over 8 minutes. And then, this is another I almost want to save this rant for the other side, but it's going to be a quick rant. I don't mean to be ranty today. It's just, I don't know, the nature of the beast, I suppose. But Chad Gable, who has recently been nicknamed Shorty Gable. And this has to be some sort of a backstage prank, rib, something or another, or just, I don't even know, just something. I don't even know how to explain it necessarily, but people have not exactly been fans of Chad Gable, who has officially been renamed here on the SmackDown brand of Shorty Gable. I mean, granted, he's not one of the larger-than-life, towering superstars. I mean, he is about my height. He's 5'8". But with professional wrestling, this is something that has been a big thing for a while, accentuating the positives and hiding the, in this case, perceived negatives. So the fact that you're referring to him as Shorty, kind of poking fun at his height, it almost creates more of a hurdle for him to become popular with the fans. And I mean, I'm looking at various things here and various articles about it, and just over the course of the last day or two, WWE fans react to Chad Gable's ridiculous name change. Fans hate WWE for booking Chad Gable as Shorty Gable. Yeah, I mean, just a whole bunch of head scratching, I suppose, that goes with it here. And this is according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. Vince McMahon likes Gable, and this new name apparently gives pleasure to McMahon, according to Meltzer's report. Quote, "It's to pop Vince." That's right, it's to pop Vince, meaning it's to entertain Vince. Vince thinks this whole thing, and that's the funny part, because Vince likes Chad Gable, and he thinks this is getting him over, and this makes Vince laugh. So this is a little bit more of entertain the Emperor, and at the expense of all of the fans, I suppose. So this is what Vince does to somebody he likes. Let that sink in. But that being said, Shorty Gable did get an upset over the recent King of the Ring, King Corbin, in a little over 12 and a half minutes. And then the other match that was announced, well, we have a new SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair, defeating Bayley by submission. And that actually led to a bit of a change that kind of surprised the world a little bit just last night on SmackDown. And we'll get to that along with a whole bunch of more on the other side, including a few other developments from yesterday that will lead us up to Brown Jewel, which we're just 19 days away from. So we'll get into the expanded card on that and talk about a whole bunch of other stuff, some AEW Dynamite. Also, surprise, surprise, but I'm going to talk a little NWA Powerrr as well coming up, as I got the chance to watch that this week, the debut episode. I'll give you my thoughts on that. I also have room for your thoughts as well on the phone lines, 215-949-3232 or toll free at 888-922-2149. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
Hi, this is Dr. Lee Piccarello, inviting you to tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. to The Head Game, a must-listen show for athletes and coaches of all levels and ages. Mindful Athlete Training in Newtown, Pennsylvania is a mental circuit training program that prepares the athletes to perform at the highest level of today's game. Athletes get into the zone faster and stay there longer. Tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. right here on WBCB 1490 AM and throughout the world at WBCB1490.com.
The Bristol Borough Community Action Group Food Bank at 99 Wood Street in Bristol has been serving Lower Bucks County since 1971. It's your monthly tax-deductible donations that allow us to provide food for hundreds of households each month. Please consider a generous one-time or recurring monthly donation at www.givebucks.org. That's www.givebucks.org. Help us help those in need. Please donate today. The Bristol Borough Community Action Group, 99 Wood Street, Bristol, PA 19007.
When an Eagles player gets hurt, the team takes care of him. When you get hurt, the attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will take care of you. They understand that a severe accident can be a life-altering event. You need a reliable teammate to fight for you. The attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will get you great results. And if there's no recovery, there's no fee. Contact them today at 215-750-0110 for a free consultation. 215-750-0110 for a reliable ally that's on your side.
It's got
man.
the Luigi death stare from Fearon, so we might have to...
I didn't give you the Luigi death stare. That's not true.
You're breaking kayfabe.
Breaking kayfabe. I'm gonna break something else during this commercial.
There we go.
All
That's
right.
what I like to see.
And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your hosts, Fearon Derry and Lucas DeSangro.
Are we getting into that controversy again?
Ugh, I know how it feels, and it's not fun.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you, flying solo. Mitch still under the weather, and Twitch dealing with occupational obligations. So, talking, as I'd kind of referred to it earlier, Hell in a Virtual Boy as opposed to Hell in a Cell. And also, talked a little Shorty Gable, and we also talked about Bayley losing the SmackDown Women's Championship to Charlotte Flair, now making her an 11-time champion. Because, we're slowly working toward her also becoming a 16-time champion like Daddy Ric Flair. It's a fairly notable, obvious thing. But, getting into SmackDown last night, Bayley and Charlotte Flair, they had another match for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship, and, Bayley had debuted a bit more of an edge and a new look. She had kind of a black and gold attire, and one of the things that she did right on the entranceway is she had the usual wacky, inflatable, that she's had for a while here, and she also cut her hair short. That was a little bit of a thing. It almost looks like a Beatles mop top, I guess is the best way to describe it. But behind one of the wacky inflatables, she had a bag that had looks like a small hatchet, I suppose. And she proceeded to basically cut slits into, or chop slits into each of the wacky inflatables, essentially killing them off. Kind of letting everybody know that the days of the hugger are gone here. But that edge certainly helped her, as it allowed her to defeat Charlotte to once again become SmackDown Women's Champion. And that occurred last night on Fox. Certainly was interesting. And then afterwards, she basically told the fans in very short order that she basically isn't on their side anymore. So the Bayley buddies are gone, and Bayley is back to being the SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, speak of SmackDown, the ratings for that debut last week, since the show had happened so shortly after, we didn't get the chance to talk about it as the ratings weren't released. So Friday Night SmackDown finishing with 3.888 million viewers for Fox. So a little under 3.9 million people saw that debut, and they performed well with over 3 times the number of viewers in the demographic of 18 to 49 males than any other show on network television on Friday nights. So, hey, they definitely they did what they set out to do. Now, time will tell how that momentum will continue. And speaking of momentum as far as debuts, that means we're on to week 2 of the Wednesday Night Wars. That's right, and this week, it goes to AEW once again. That's right, AEW Dynamite producing a combined 1.14 million viewers between TNT and True TV. Now, why they had the different airings here, there were some television markets that had TNT preempting Dynamite and airing it on True TV, one of the other Time Warner, Turner-owned networks, due to overlap from the Major League Baseball playoffs on TBS this past Wednesday night. So TBS was supposed to carry both games. One of them ran long, so they started the one. Yeah, they moved the one game over to TNT, so therefore they moved AEW Dynamite over to True TV. A lot of movement going on. But between those, they combined for 1.14 million, and there was over 1 million viewers on TNT, so it only maybe affected 100,000 or so viewers who tuned into True TV. And they finished 8th in the cable ratings in the 18 to 49 demographic. NXT, meanwhile, on USA Network, they produced 790,000 viewers, which was 26th in that same demographic, and down to AEW by about 350,000 pairs of eyes. So both shows having an understandable setback from their debuts last week, but still respectable numbers. And, well, again, I mean, the intrigue goes to Dynamite, and I'm kind of with them on it. I mean, not to sound like one of the, I don't want to sound like, oft, I guess, ridiculed Mark K. Fabe, who occasionally appears on the program here. But I know there are a lot of people who are, AEW can do no wrong, WWE's terrible, and there are others like, AEW, they're just this kind of awful company that is, they're not going to last very long, who do they think they are? I understand that I think people take this war thing a little too seriously. If both companies are going strong, that's a good thing for professional wrestling. You can like Rocky Road ice cream and also like mint chocolate chip. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Same thing here. You can like All Elite Wrestling and you can like WWE. Because you're used to a monopoly over the course of the past 18 years, and now there is the potential to not be one, it doesn't mean that you have to exclusively like one particular product. There's a lot out there, and the fact that it's growing, it's great for the wrestling business, it's great for the fans. Enjoy the ride. And if you want to have fun with the numbers like I do, you can certainly do that as well. But it's not necessarily, I mean, if you want to jokingly, playfully argue about which one you like more, okay. But it's not one is awesome, the other is terrible. It's very, very polarizing. And if you want polarization, go talk politics. There's plenty of that there. Wrestling, you can enjoy all the things. Or whichever of the things you like. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, I like only this one thing and nothing else, nothing else matters, to take from the Metallica song. And that being said, I decided to give something else a go here that debuts all over the place here. The NWA Powerrr, which, yes, you can see that on YouTube. That's not even a TV thing. You can get that on demand at the NWA's website. The National Wrestling Alliance, been around for roughly a century, or at least it feels that way. They're trying to get back to their roots a little bit. As they had the premiere episode, they did some tapings in Atlanta, Georgia, and well, I enjoyed it. I liked the fact that it had a throwback feel to it, but it wasn't meant to be kitschy, campy, 60s Batman type what was that silly thing WWE did a little bit ago with the alternate characters? Oh, goodness. I'm going to draw a blank on it. I'll look it up during the break just because I'm having trouble remembering. The memory tends to fade over time here, for lack of a better term. But yeah, it'll come to me, of course, after the fact, and then I'll come back from the break and go, oh yeah, it was that thing, because that's usually how these things go. But yeah, the NWA Powerrr, not only did I enjoy it, but apparently a rather notable name as well in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That's right. Yeah, The Rock. He definitely smelled what NWA Powerrr was cooking. He had seen the premiere episode and praised it via social media, tweeting out, quote, "Congrats, Jim," meaning Cornette, "the boys, crew, etc. Stumbled across this show last night and enjoyed it. I grew up in territories and started my career at Channel 5 in Memphis, so I have a lot of love and respect for small-scale crowd TV shows. Cool vintage feel. Keep working hard, boys." Now, as of this morning, the debut episode of NWA Powerrr, it had about 350,000 views on YouTube. So, yeah, so it wasn't too bad. It did pretty good. I'm okay with it. And it's something that's definitely worth giving a look. I mean, Nick Aldis certainly got a very negative reaction as the champion. I mean, it made you feel like you were back in the 1980s. The only thing that was missing was Tony Schiavone with that whopper mustache. I mean, that was more Jim Crockett Promotions, but the NWA title was a part of it. But yeah, that's kind of what they were going for. I don't know. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you will as well. Give it a look. I think it's definitely definitely worthwhile. That's to say the least. Now, another YouTube, another YouTube episode that debuted going back to AEW was AEW Dark, which was a comprisal of dark matches from the AEW Dynamite TV shows. And they put that together the week after the show so that way you can get an idea of what the live crowd got to see. And that's kind of a cool feel because normally you don't get to see those things. So it's nice that they're bringing the home audience in after the fact, and maybe it gives them a chance to kind of select, all right, well, this one really wasn't as good. We're going to hold off on it. But I believe they've been showing them all thus far, so you're able to see the ones that were in D.C. a week and a half ago now. And I would imagine this week they'll have the ones from Boston. The following week they'll have the ones from Philadelphia this coming Wednesday, etc. But as of this morning, it had about 688,000 views on AEW Dark. So there's an internet presence as well as a television presence, and there's a lot of wrestling that's out there, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So in taking a look here, we're also on the other side, we're going to take care of a timeout in a little bit here, but we'll go over the WWE draft from SmackDown as that has started as well. And also kind of give my take on the draft so far. I mean, we'll get into more of that, talk about who was eligible on last night's episode, who was withheld and is part of the draft pool for Monday, just to make sure that there wasn't all the cherry picking on SmackDown and that Raw was kind of left to air the equivalent in the NFL of the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds of the proverbial draft. So, well, of course, as I say that, rounds 1 through 4 were on SmackDown, so rounds 5 and beyond will be on Raw. But they also left some top-tier talent in those late areas. So we'll go over that on the other side, plus a little bit of a press conference news regarding Brown Jewel. We'll talk a little bit more about that as that's coming up in a little less than 3 weeks from now. Plus, we've got a major tournament that's making a comeback. No, they're not redoing King of the Ring once again because they just finished that. But another tournament that people have been wondering, when's this going to happen here this year? And looks like they finally got it set up here, and we'll let you know what's going on with that as well. So a whole bunch more here. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Pests are a year-round problem, but it only seems to elevate in the fall. Thankfully, termite proofing and pest control can help you out. TPPC will help you get rid of household pests like spiders, bed bugs, roaches, and mice. TPPC only uses EPA-approved material applied by licensed technicians. Call them today at 215-639-5455. Again, that number 215-639-5455 for termite proofing and pest control of the Delaware Valley.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. Do you love food? Do you love shellfish? Then you'll love Chicky and Pete's. The best mussels you'll ever have, guaranteed. An assortment of the freshest crabs, seasoned the Chicky and Pete's way. And things you can't get anywhere else. Lobster pizza, crab nachos, and our famous lobster cheesesteak. We have a huge selection of draft beer and the best selection of craft beer. For your next night out, visit Chicky and Pete's. And remember, it's a lot more fun to eat in a bar than drink in a restaurant.
All commentators heard on WBCB express their own views. Their opinions are not necessarily those of others on WBCB, including the staff and management.
We all have the ability to touch the lives of those around us. To someone going through a difficult time, a text, a call, or a visit can mean so much. Reach out to the veterans in your life today. Let them know they're not alone. One simple act can make all the difference. That's the power of one. If you're a veteran in crisis or know one who is, Visit veteranscrisisline.net for free 24/7 confidential support.
Avoid FOG. No, I'm not talking about the inclement weather, but fats, oil, and grease. Approximately 80% of grease-related sewer blockages and overflows occur in residential areas. That's because FOG clings to the inside of pipes, eventually causing a blockage. So never put fats, oil, and grease down the drain. This message from BCWSA, your utility partner for a safer environment. Learn more about what not to put down your drain online. BCWSA.net.
Pro Wrestling Weekly presents Today in Wrestling History, October 12th. On this date, 1998, WCW Monday Nitro aired live from Chicago, Illinois. In the main event, Sting and the Warrior defeated Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan by disqualification. On this date in 2008, TNA held its Bound for Glory 4 pay-per-view. In the main event, Sting pinned Samoa Joe to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. On this date in 2009, WWE Monday Night Raw aired live from Indianapolis, Indiana. In the main event, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. defeated John Cena and Randy Orton in a tag team match. On this date in 2014, TNA and WrestleOne collaborated to present Bound for Glory pay-per-view. In the main event, the Great Muta and Tajiri defeated the Great Sonata and James Storm in a tag team match. This has been Today in Wrestling History, October 12th.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you, and Twitch is not, nor is Mitch. Twitch has occupational obligations, Mitch a little under the weather, and it was bugging me for a while. I was on the tip of my tongue. Southpaw Regional Wrestling. That was the spoof that WWE did of the wrestling back in the 80s. And that is not what NWA Powerrr is about. It's got a retro feel, but it also is modernized as well. I mean, there are some things that look kind of cheesy 80s, but the entire thing, it's not meant to be a spoof. It's meant to be the now. So I think that's rather interesting. So other things that went on here, well, we'll go ahead and get into this next, the draft, as that was last night. So far, there were 4 different rounds, and the way that they did it, they made it look like the USA executives and Fox executives were making the decisions regarding who was going to which brand, and that's an interesting concept. I just don't know how well it came across. I mean, they had various executives from Fox who were not only just executives, but Fox representatives as well. I know Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, the lead play-by-play and color commentators for NFL on Fox. I know they were in attendance and didn't really have much to say regarding their knowledge of pro wrestling. The only thing that Troy Aikman had was, he has praise for Hulk Hogan because the two of them worked together in a Rent-A-Center commercial long ago. But that's about as far as Troy Aikman's knowledge of wrestling goes. And I get it, not everybody's going to necessarily follow, but I don't know. They could have gone a number of different ways with it. I mean, you've got Rob Gronkowski on your Fox Sports payroll as of this past Thursday. You couldn't have gotten him in. I mean, he's a big wrestling guy. There were rumors he'd be signing with WWE, and given the way things are going, who knows? Maybe that's something for down the road, but we'll cross that bridge in a little bit here. So because Raw is 3 hours and SmackDown is 2, each round would consist of 5 picks. Raw would get 3 picks, SmackDown would get 2, and it would go intermittent. It would change off. Raw gets 1, SmackDown 1, Raw 1, SmackDown 1, and then Raw 1 again. Then for round 2, same thing. Raw, SmackDown, Raw, and it stays that way all throughout. So the number 1 overall pick was Becky Lynch going to Raw. Roman Reigns is with SmackDown, which isn't really surprising since the scales are kind of tilting towards SmackDown being the premier show. And I think that's because they've got the network deal of Fox as opposed to cable with USA. if NBC Universal said, yeah, we'll go ahead and put Monday Night Raw on Monday nights on NBC, well, I don't know if they'd ever do that, but if they were to do that, that would be a game changer. It would probably shift back the other way. But I don't think that NBC has any interest in basically cutting out their entire Monday night lineup for wrestling, 8 to 11, their whole prime time. Yeah, no. Don't think that's happening. So Roman Reigns went to SmackDown. Raw drafted all 3 members of the OC, AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson. I guess apparently factions or teams could be drafted, but we'll see how that goes in a moment. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, he's now on SmackDown, and Drew McIntyre, he is now over to Raw. And one thing of note, there was only a certain pool of wrestlers that were eligible to be drafted during Friday Night SmackDown, and I'll give you the list that WWE gave in a moment here after I give you round 2, just to let a little something sink in that let's just say it was a facepalm or maybe even head desk moment. We'll put it that way. So round 2, you had Randy Orton going to Raw, Sasha Banks to SmackDown, Ricochet over to Raw, Braun Strowman to SmackDown, and Bobby Lashley to Raw. Now, here's why I mentioned these 10 names in this particular order. This was the list in order provided by WWE of the pool of wrestlers eligible to be drafted for SmackDown. Becky Lynch, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Bray Wyatt, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Sasha Banks, Ricochet, Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley. Now, the reason I'm saying this, and it kind of deviates from there, but the first, now counting the OC as one group, the first 10 names were listed in order of what they ended up being drafted. Becky Lynch was listed first. She was number 1. Roman Reigns listed second. He was 2. The OC were listed third. Well, technically third, fourth, and fifth, but third. They were picked third. Bray Wyatt after that. He was picked fourth, etc. It finally deviated kind of in round 3. Let me mention the rest here because I just kind of stopped at 10. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, Lacey Evans, the Viking Raiders, the Revival, Natalia, the Street Profits, Kalisto, Graham Metalik, and Linsterado, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Humberto Carrillo, Akira Tozawa, Sin Cara, Eric Young, EC3, Chad Gable, Heath Slater, Drew Gulak, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel, and Tamina. Now, there were only the 4 rounds, so I guess I don't know if the others are undrafted free agents. Well, I guess we'll figure that out as it goes along here. But the remaining picks from last night, round 3, Alexa Bliss went to Raw, Lacey Evans to SmackDown, Kevin Owens to Raw, the Revival to SmackDown, and Natalia to Raw. And then in round 4, to close things out, the Viking Raiders went to Raw, Lucha House Party to SmackDown, Nikki Cross to Raw, Heavy Machinery to SmackDown, and the Street Profits to Raw. So a couple of names in there that weren't picked, so I don't know if they go into the SmackDown pool, or well, they go into the pool to be picked for Raw, or if they're just undrafted free agents. Now, this leads me to wonder, okay, they listed a couple of names, or at least somewhat shuffled, so I don't think Titus O'Neil's getting listed third, or picked third, I should say. But the pool of wrestlers that will be drafted this Monday on Raw includes Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, Charlotte Flair, Titus O'Neil, Shinsuke Nakamura with Sami Zayn, Aleister Black, all 3 members of the New Day, Daniel Bryan, Bayley, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan, The Miz, Ali, King Corbin. Wow, this is a lengthy list. It's basically everybody else on the roster, because otherwise I could spend the rest of the hour talking about all the names here. But yeah, Mysterio, R-Truth, Carmella, just to name a few. Now, I don't know. I mentioned all this with the draft here. How do you feel about it? For me, I'm a little nonplussed, and here's why. It's kind of hard to get super excited about the draft and the changing of the lineups and everything of that nature, just because this is now the 3rd time in WWE, or in 2019 in WWE, that they have hit the proverbial reset button. The first 2 being WrestleMania 35, when 7 of the 9 titles changed hands that night. Yeah, that was, You had Becky Lynch beating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte in the triple threat main event. You had Seth Rollins beating Brock Lesnar. You had Kofi Kingston beating Daniel Bryan. Kofi Mania running wild. You had all these secondary titles that had changed hands as well. The only two that hadn't, if I recall correctly, were Samoa Joe beating Rey Mysterio and the Usos retaining in that four-way tag match. All the other titles changed hands. So you had that shakeup earlier in early April, and then not even a month later, you had the Superstar shakeup, which again moved people from different, from Raw brand to SmackDown and vice versa. And then, of course, even that was soiled up by, what was that other thing?
Oh, hang on a second. I just had an epiphany.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The wild card rule. Thanks for that, Vince.
I'm brilliant.
Yes, you are.
I'm a genius.
Absolutely. So now, for the third time in 6 months, the rosters are being shuffled up. I don't know. Kind of makes it hard to think, well, all right, maybe this time they'll actually stick to it. But again, I mean, maybe that's just me. I'm hard to say. So, one other thing that came out of yesterday that was not necessarily SmackDown related, but there was a press conference yesterday, and a few of the additional participants were announced for Brown Jewel coming up on Halloween night. Although, because they don't like Halloween in Saudi Arabia, they can't mention Halloween, so it's simply October 31st. But one of the biggies was an announcement that also had it had a report from ESPN as well. They had reported that former UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez, who we saw kind of spook the daylights out of Brock Lesnar last Friday, a week ago on SmackDown, well, he has signed a multi-year deal with WWE and has officially retired from mixed martial arts. Now, here's the thing. Your marquee matchup, which they've announced for Brown Jewel, Brock Lesnar defending the WWE Championship against Cain Velasquez. We kind of all saw that coming, and all right, so now it's come to fruition. You're getting that match in 19 days. What do you do with Velasquez after that? I mean, that's I can understand maybe building up to it, kind of having Lesnar maybe dodge him by saying, hey, you were big in UFC, but you're kind of a rookie here. You need to prove yourself. Maybe kind of build a chase that could maybe lead up to, say, WrestleMania, and then you could have it in that huge marquee, down in Tampa Bay. You're going to have 40+, 50+ thousand people there. Maybe that's the way to go. Kind of have Heyman just be the talking piece, kind of throw challengers in his way, have Cain continue to chase and prove himself and move his way up. That'd be a good, long, drawn-out plan. Yeah, they don't have that. They're going right for the gusto for it. So you're getting it in 19 days, and also you're getting Braun Strowman against boxing heavyweight champion Tyson Fury. And all of this coming about because Fox says they want more of a sports-like feel. And I get that, and that's why they've got a boxing champion, they've got a UFC fighter. This leads me to wonder now, I mean, I mentioned him earlier, how far are we away from seeing the recently retired NFL tight end for the New England Patriots, or formerly from the New England Patriots, Rob Gronkowski? We saw him make an appearance prior to WrestleMania 33, I believe it was, when he helped Mojo Rawley win the Andre the Giant Insignificant Memorial Battle Royal. Yeah, I threw a liberty or two in there. But, I mean, we know that even then there was kind of talk about it. Now that he has retired from the NFL, I mean, he's got the analyst job with Fox Sports. He's doing the Thursday Night Football thing. Who's to say that, I mean, hey, SmackDown on Fox, cross-promotion, bring some of the football fans into it. I have a feeling that may happen, if not sooner, then probably later. And they also announced a couple of other names, nothing set as far as matches yet. One thing I thought was interesting, they did announce that the Fiend Bray Wyatt is, in fact, going to wrestle at Brown Jewel. And given how Saudi Arabia is, they don't like Halloween things. They don't like. Yeah, they don't like anything associated with Halloween, the devil, and any of the usual spooktastic things that are Halloween. It's kind of surprising that they have this very paranormal type character in The Fiend, and they're allowing him to wrestle. But I guess they allowed The Undertaker and Kane to wrestle, so maybe it's just more so they want to avoid the Halloween theme, potentially. I don't know. It's hard to say, but we'll find out as things go on here, I suppose. So another announcement from WWE, they listed that the 2019 Mae Young Classic Women's Tournament, that's going to be taking place on November 2nd and 3rd in Winter Park, Florida at Full Sail University. So it'll be taking place that weekend. I don't know if they're going to be airing it or if they're just going to be taping it to be aired later. Time will tell. They haven't really gotten too much into that here. And one other kind of feel-good story here. The Big Show, he's been around for a while. He's kind of stepped away from his in-ring duties as he's getting up there in age. And when you're a really big guy like he is, it takes your toll in the knees, the back, things of that nature. So he's been doing other ventures, acting and some other things of that nature. Well, now he's got another project. Think Factory Media, which is an ITV America company, as well as WWE Studios, they announced this past Tuesday a partnership to produce a new reality series, Big Show versus the World, A Giant Abroad, starring WWE's Big Show. And it says from the press release here, through his extensive world travels with WWE, Big Show has collected a lifetime of unusual stories filled with unexplained natural occurrences, local enigmas, and fascinating people. Big Show versus the World, A Giant Abroad will follow the larger-than-life WWE superstar as he travels back to these locations and indulges his lifelong passion for exploring the strange and unknown. Each self-contained episode will feature Big Show venturing into a new exotic area where he'll team up with a local guide and dive headfirst into a native mystery or legend. Navigating the difficulty of travel at 7 feet tall and the extreme, sometimes awkward situations he encounters with his signature self-deprecating sense of humor, Big Show will do whatever it takes to unearth every quirky and shocking detail during his adventures into the bizarre. I almost feel like it comes across like Big Show meets Kook's Tour, the last project that the Three Stooges were going to do, where they were kind of traveling the country, almost like a travelogue type thing. And given that Kook's Tour never really took off the ground because shortly there, or I think during the filming of it, Larry of the Three Stooges had a stroke, it's going to be interesting to see how the Big Show takes this on. So I will admit I am kind of looking forward to that. Yeah, definitely. Who would have thought I'd get a Kook's Tour reference into the wrestling show here? I mean, of all the things, Ted. Well, I mean, hey, I had the Sugar Crisp commercial in there. Yeah, exactly. A wise guy, huh? Oh, goodness. Yeah, quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting. I love that great drop. All right, we're at about that time here. We got about a couple of minutes here, so that means it's time for... Thank you, Ted. Always appreciated in the absence of the youth there. Yeah, the other two numbskulls, exactly. The Larry and Curly to my Mo. Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's... Once they finally all get back in here, I'm going to have to use that. All right, on this date in 1968, Hugh Michael Jackman was born. The actor best known for playing Wolverine in the X-Men film series from 2000 to 2017 and was also a guest star on the September 19th, 2011 edition of Monday Night Raw. He turns 51 today. Yeah, I had to stretch a little bit. And on this date in 1972, Karen Smedley was born, the pro wrestling valet and personality who was formerly the senior vice president of the Impact Knockouts women's division and was the former wife of pro wrestler and Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. And in a collar-tugging controversial issue at the time, they ended up divorcing and is now the current wife of Impact and GFW founder and wrestler Jeff Jarrett. Yeah, she left one wrestler for another, and they worked in the same company. But yeah, exactly. But she turns 46 today, or 47 today, I should say. Math. And to the Brucey bonuses, things outside of the world of wrestling. On this date in 1953, Les Dennis was born. You may not know him over here. He's across the pond. The English television presenter, actor, and comedian, best known as the 15-year-long host of Family Fortunes, the British game show equivalent to Family Feud. Well, he turns 66 today, and Well, there's a funny story, which I don't know if I have time for, but he ended up giving a contestant 12 pounds out of his own pocket from an awful answer. Name a way of toasting someone, she said, over a fire. And he said, if it's the answer's up there, I'll give you the money myself. And it turns out it was. On this date in 1970, Kirk Cameron was born. Mike Seaver from Growing Pains, he's 49. And 1975, Marion Jones, the former world champion track athlete, well, from the, she was disqualified from gold medals and other stuff of that nature. That's it for us here, and we'll see you next week. Play us out, Nutsy.
1 o'clock and all's well.
Sunshine Music Memories with smiling Lou Powers. Mid-mornings on 1490